Hi everyone, good day. My name is Olabi Adeniro and I welcome you to the last live coding session for this stage. Okay, let me just try and pick up. Exactly. So today we'll be talking about Azure. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear.
Yeah, sure, thanks. So today we'll be talking about Azure and that will serve as the last live coding session for this stage where we have been trying to introduce different DevOps tools and concepts to have a wide spectrum of understanding of the kind of tools that you will use in this line. So we have treated Git actions, we have treated Docker as a container service. We also took CI/CD for we took CI/CD for DevOps, and today we're talking about Azure. So Azure is the cloud platform provided by Microsoft, which is an equivalent to the more popular AWS and probably let me say the third in the spectrum, GCP, Google Cloud Platform. So Azure is provided by Microsoft and it contains a lot of cloud tools that organizations have been using extensively in implementing and managing infrastructure and DevOps practices. Um, so to not waste much of our time, you can see the Azure. I think you can see the Azure platform. Sorry, can I confirm if you can see my screen?
Yes, it is visible, but it is showing collab notebook.
It's showing a collab notebook. I
Yes, I
see.
can see your screen.
Yeah, let me just do a new share. Okay. So how about now? Can you see my screen now? Azure services, Microsoft Azure.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. All right, no problem. Thank you. So this is the Microsoft Azure um tool. This is called the Cloud Console. So it is a tool that is provided by Azure to manage your infrastructure using the GUI service. Just as we saw for Docker Desktop and the Docker CLI, the last live coding session, Azure also provides the CLI tool and a CLI tool, and also this Azure Cloud Console, the Azure Shell, Azure Cloud Console as it is called, where we can use Azure services without having to run command line too. So I have to change my infrastructure because I'm sorry, I have to change my directory because I'm currently in another directory based on the project I worked on previously. So we'll be talking about some of the few popular features of Azure and these tools and how they are used currently. So in Azure, the very first thing we should talk about, let's talk about the resource groups. So resource groups is like a way for you to manage all of your resources in one location. So in stage E, we'll be focusing on Azure and most of our labs in stage E would basically be on Azure and using Azure services. So resource group is a way, it is like the basic unit of structure of organization of all of your services in Azure. Going back to our home page, you can
Unit
see that,
one.
sorry. Okay, so let me just continue. So going back to our Azure page, you can see that if I come here, probably to come and search for a lot of different resources, I can just come here and say, let's see some of these services. It is quite a lot. It is quite a lot of different services that Azure is providing. So in a case where you have created a lot of infrastructure and you cannot see them as part of your recent infrastructure, for example, the easiest way to see all of the infrastructure that you have implemented or created at one point or the other is via the resource group, because every infrastructure you are going to implement must have a resource group. They must belong to a resource group. That's the correct terminology. So you cannot just create any infrastructure without it belonging to a resource group. So if I'm going to create a resource group now, I'll click on the create button. So you need to select a subscription. So Azure offers free subscription to students, which is what I'm currently using. But if you don't have a student recognized domain, you probably have to pay for a subscription, or if you have opportunity to use your credit card, then you can get a year free of, I think, 3,000 credits if I remember correctly, that they provide to new users on sign up and adding a card, an accepted card. So you select the subscription, so you can have multiple subscriptions on the same account. When you select the subscription to which your Azure service is going to belong to, then you name your resource group. So I'm going to name this resource group LCS for stage B. Okay, so you can select whatever region. So you select a region that is closest to wherever you are in sense of what you're working with. But the default region is US East. So I'll just leave the default region and I'll click on review and create. Okay, so it is going through some validation steps, and after the validation steps gets to completion, you can then create the group. Okay, review and create. So exactly. So since the validation has passed, you just come here and you click on the create button. So now this resource group has been created, and you can see if I come here, um LCS4 stage B. So this is this resource group. And then, so anytime you create a resource group, under that resource group, you can see a lot of different services that you can see a lot of different services that you have created that belong to this resource group. So in this resource group, this is a resource group that we just created that is empty. So if you click on this create, you can begin to add, it automatically redirects you to the services where you can begin to add different services from this resource group. So the first service I'm introducing us to, which is a very, very widely used service, is the Azure storage account. So this is the storage account service. So storage account service provides us with a virtual storage on the cloud. A very popular equivalent is Amazon S3 buckets. If I just come here and say S3 buckets, I think you must have heard of this. So this is a cloud object storage. So this is the equivalent of Amazon Web Services. Their own equivalent for storage is S3 bucket. So Microsoft's own is called the Microsoft Storage Account. And with Microsoft Storage Account, you can store anything in any format, as long as it's a file that can be worked with. Okay, sorry, Tony is raising up his hand. Is there anything that you want us to address, Tony, before I continue?
Good evening. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, good evening. I can hear you.
Okay, this Azure account, I've tried to create it countless times. I'm not a student, so I don't have a student email. So I've tried using my transferring several cards. It keeps saying the same thing. Information not information not recognized too. So I don't know how I'm going to carry on with this course if you cannot properly create the Azure account. So that's what's raising.
Accounts. Yes, it's a popular issue based on a rule that was, I think it was a law that was passed in Nigeria, I think a few years back, where our credit cards in Nigeria are not supported for international transactions anymore. So when we try to use our credit card, they get bounced back because the bank institution cannot authenticate our cards for international transactions. And same, an alternative that used to be employed then was to use virtual cards. So platforms like Gray or Cheaper Cash provided virtual cards in USD that could also be used to sign up for this platform. But sometime last year, it also Azure updated its terms and services that it doesn't accept virtual cards anymore. So the major option that Nigerians can use to get a valid subscription currently is to have a domiciliary account. So if you have a domiciliary account and then you get a debit card associated with the domiciliary account, with that um it's easy to create an account with that kind of debit card. Or another option is to always make transfers using the transfer option, but you also have to make the transfer in the coin in their own currency. So it has to be a USD transfer to the bank account that they will provide to you. So one of the things that we advise people to do is the internship duration is around 4 months, and at least I think probably a month has elapsed, and Azure offers like a 3 months free trial plan, if I remember correctly, unless the terms and services has been updated. But they offer a 3 months trial plan where even without providing a credit card, you should be able to use these services that will require. So we try our best in the internship to not specify the use of services that we know will not be available in the free trial plan. But I think recently we've also heard that the 3 months trial would also require that you have a debit card. So our advice is probably use a new email to try and create another account and see if the 3 months free trial is still available without having to add a debit card. On our end also, we're also trying to come up with probably solutions where we can probably help interns of this particular track only to provide means where they can use Azure via our own platform to just try and create whatever as resources we expect it to create. So I'll just say keep an open mind, and we actually acknowledge this, and we're also looking into it. And this is just the introductory phase for this particular for the lab of this particular stage. You also don't need Azure to complete it, so you're fine. And then for your premier project, which will be commencing very soon, you also probably won't need Azure till we begin stage C, which by then hopefully you probably would have tried to figure out something.
Okay, thank you very much. And about the new email, I've created countless emails. Gmail is now blocking my accounts just to create an Azure account. So hopefully we can come up with another way to circumvent this problem. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Yeah, thanks for the observation. We're also looking into it from our end. Okay, so back to our storage account. So the storage account provides you with, you can it's basically like um it's, it's basically a storage, just as you would any local storage, a flash drive, an hard disk, or whatever you use as your external storage. But the only difference is that this is present on the cloud, and since it's present on the cloud, it's accessible anywhere as long as you have enough access, or you have enough privileges to access the storage account basically. So to create a storage account, we'll just click on the create button here. Okay, so here is where we specify the resource group. So just as I stated, the resource group is one of the key building components for um Azure resources, and you can see that it is a required component. So if you don't have a resource group, Azure will tell you to create one, but every resource you are creating must belong to a resource group. So I'll click the LCS for stage B, and then I'll specify the current name. I'll call this LCS storage. Okay, so there's an issue. They say you can only contain lowercase letter and numbers. So therefore, I'll remove this hyphen here. So LCS storage. This name is taken already. So another issue about storage name is once a storage name is in use currently across Azure, you cannot use that same storage name. So you don't necessarily have to be the one who has created that storage name. So for Azure to be able to create a unique identifier for each storage name, they ensure that as long as the storage name is currently in use by any person on the platform, that storage name cannot be utilized by you also. So to do this, I'll add a random digit. I'll call that 2024. So I believe this should be available for use. And then since there's no error popping up, I think we are good to go. So this is the storage name. So you need to deploy it to a region. So the default region is always US, East US. That's the region for most of these companies because that's where they are located. For AWS also it's in that region. Even for um GCP, that's the Google Cloud Platform. So their default regions mostly defaults to US, East US, because they have a lot of data centers in the US, and that's where they originate from. So the redundancy, all of these are things that you don't really need to stress about. And then we have next. So when you're creating your storage, you can use your storage for two types of data. So it's possible you want to store let's say backup data. So let's say in the organization keeps probably records of sales and transactions per year. So on a yearly basis, the transactions that were recorded for that year has to be stored somewhere. It has to be archived. So in that case, where you want to store archival data, in the sense that this data will not be accessed frequently and will only be accessed on a limited basis, that you just want to store them in case of you need to reference them and you don't need them on a daily basis or even on a monthly basis, you can use this access tier of cool. So this optimize your storage accounts for, as you can see, infrequently accessed data and backup scenarios. So this allows you, it gives you more options to be able to upload larger set of data than the auto optimized for frequently access will do, because for everyday data, it is expected that a data that you need to retrieve daily or you need to access daily should not be as much or as large as a data set that you are trying to store archival data. So but for our case, I'm just going to choose auth and then large share files. So all of these are options that you only use this when you need them. Then we go to the next one, which is the networking. So network access is a very, very key aspect also. So just as if you remember when I was saying that you can access it from anywhere as long as you're authenticated to. So if you are working in a company, for example, companies prefer that their services or internal organization tools are only accessible to people that are in the organization, or only accessible when you're on the network that is recognized by the organization. So in that kind of case now, you need to select that you disable public access and you use private access. So when you use a private access, you already have probably a private virtual network or a private VPC that you can use to authenticate yourself to this particular storage device. So in this kind of scenario now, no one will just be able to access your storage account. They will need to have enough enough privilege, or they will need to be on that private account that has been authenticated to access the storage accounts. Then you also have public access and virtual network. So with public access and virtual network, it's possible to make it available for people to access publicly, and you also have the option to ensure that only people on a private network can access your storage accounts. But for our use case, we'll be using the enable public access from all networks. So we want anyone to be able to access our storage accounts as long as they have an internet. So the routing preference, as usual, the default is Microsoft routing, and that's the major thing we need to do here. So data protection, these are done automatically. So they also give us options for in an event where you accidentally delete your data, for example, there's a retention date of 7 days, the default, which you can also change. So the retention date is probably when you delete accidentally, just like you would on your local PC. If you delete something, you can easily retrieve it from the recycle bin. They give us these retention days, but we don't really need all of this for now. And then the next thing is encryption. So the encryption is what allows your data to be stored privately. So it ensures that you are the only one that is able to access the content of your data in your storage account. And most times this is actually overlooked sort of, because you only do this when you have probably sensitive data that you don't want people to access. In that case, you can create a managed key, and then your key will be used for decrypting your data anytime you want to access it. And then we have tags, review and create. So this is the last stage. So it's going to validate that we have enough rights to create this particular storage account. Okay, so our validation has passed, and then we can create this. But before I do this, I want us to see something. This, for every for every service you're trying to create, there's a view automation template. If you remember, as I stated, even for Docker, when you want to automate things, the essence of DevOps is automation. So it will not be logical when we are trying to practice DevOps, and every time we want a new storage account, or probably we are trying to automate the process of storing the archival data every year. So it is not DevOps agnostic, and it is not logical after automating all of the processes to now allow the process of creating your buckets to be a manual process. So there has to be someone on ground to create a storage bucket before you can save your data, which is not logical. So knowing this, and knowing that cloud is also used for automation of tools, we have this feature where you see view automation templates. So the view automation templates is a way where Azure provides you with a JSON schema. And what this JSON schema does, it allows you to be able to automatically replicate this particular storage account that we have just created using the GUI. So with this, you can just replicate this. So if you have this JSON format here, you can automate it in a single coordinated divine resources with a script or code. So you can use things like Terraform that will introduce in a later part of this course. You can use things like Terraform. You can use even the Azure CLI itself, and just use this JSON file to automatically replicate these storage accounts. So you can see that there are some things that we did not specify, but you can see them. So the CLI gives us even better ways to even manually fine tune what we want in our storage account. So this is storage account name. So it is a string, the kind, the type, blah blah. And then these are all of the things. So these are the variables. So this is the name, then the type, the API version. These are the values for. So is our file sharing enabled, encryption enabled, the SKU. So all of these are different things that with this, all you just have to do is to download these templates. And once you download these templates, you can easily replicate this particular storage account. So probably we have to create the storage account from the scratch. I just wanted to show you that. So this is provided automatically by Azure, where you don't have to stress yourself too much when you want to create a new version of that storage account. So I'll pick LCS4. I'll name this LCS storage 2024 as expected, and then next. So it is auth next, enable public sharing, and I'll just go to review and create actually. So when the validation pass, we then exactly, so we're going to create this particular storage account, and when it gets created, it will give us a notification pop-up that your storage account has been created successfully. Okay, so it is deploying, deployment in progress. So you don't necessarily have to wait on this screen. Your deployment is will be done in the background, even when you go away from this screen to do other things. The deployment will be done in the background, and when it's done, um okay, this is taking a while. Let me refresh this. Exactly. So our storage account has been created. So if I go back home, and now I click on storage groups, resource group, sorry, and I come into this resource group, you'll see that this LCS storage I just created, we can now find it in our resource group when it was formerly empty. So that is what This is how you can always ensure that once you are not using once you're not making use of a resource anymore, you don't have to now start deleting your resources singly. You don't have to start looking for each resource before you can delete it. All you just have to do is to all you just have to do is to come to your resource group, and you can delete this resource group, and every resource that you created under that resource group gets deleted automatically. So let's go into the storage account and let's see some of the features that we have. Okay, um so this is an overview of the storage account. So it belongs to this resource group. Location is here, subscription is under the subscription. So these are the um different easy informations about the storage account. So if you come here now to the storage browser, so the storage browser is what shows us what what is contained in our storage account. So the way storage Azure storage account works is each the organization is at the top level. We have a storage account. Then for every storage account we have a container, and then under every container we have a blob. So as you can see on this left hand here, you can see we have something called blob containers. So what this container does is you can begin to section. You can see this as probably one a big folder, your storage account, this LCS storage 2024. It's a folder on its own. And then you want to create multiple subfolders in this storage account. So I can first click on access this container. So I'll say I can call this folder one. Okay, so anonymous level is private. So this is because the access level is set to private, is based on the trade account. So we'll do that later. But let me create this container currently. So this container has been created. So when you go into when you create a container, it is in a container that you can now start making uploads to files. So I can come here now and say, okay, I want to upload a particular file. Let me just browse for a particular let me just browse for an image, for example, and open. So these images I can upload them, and you can see what it's in this notification. What is saying? It is saying successfully uploaded blobs. So every file that is contained inside the container is seen as a blob. So this is the terminology that you need to understand, because if in the future when you start to begin to automate things, you have to understand the level of organization from the storage account to the containers, then to the blobs. Because when you want to interact, you first need to have a container object. Then inside the container object, you now begin to search for the blob that is containing the file that you want before you can. Because imagine a use case where you are using an Azure storage service to store profile pictures of users. So you don't want it to be such that anytime a user uploads a new profile picture, you have to create a new blob. What we want to do is when a user creates a new profile picture, we want to go into the previous blob that is containing the picture of that user and replace the image there with a new image. You get what I'm trying to say? So the way it works, so you need to understand that this level of organization is from the storage accounts to the containers, then to the blobs. And if I click on this particular file that I just uploaded now, you can see that we have so this is the name of the file. When last was it modified, when was it created? So inside the blob you can modify files using, but I don't think we have the opportunity to modify files with the Azure console. You can only modify files when you are using programmatic languages like Python, or when you are using the Azure CLI. So if I download this, you see that it does basically download the file. But one thing we should understand is that for every blob that get created, Azure automatically creates a link that can be used to access the file. So this is the difference between when you have it on your local storage and when you have it on a blob. So for every file that you have uploaded at any point in the other, you can copy this particular link here and then paste this link on your local PC, and with enough access you should be able to get it. But you can see that I'm getting an error. public access is not permitted. So even though when we're creating the storage account, we had selected the option that we had selected an option that we want our storage account to be accessed from anywhere. Selecting that option does not mean that we still have enough access to view the contents of the storage account without from any link. So imagine you provided this link to someone now in the organization and they paste this link online, then they will just see this error message also. So we need to um implement a setting. So if we go back to this storage account here, so under here, under settings, let's go back to overview. Okay, under overview, if we to the left here, I think it should be under security plus networking. So under security plus networking, we have access keys. And then when you want to access your storage accounts, when you want to start access your storage account using tools like the Azure CLI or Python or Terraform, you need to, these are the access keys that you can use to access your account. Because without this access key, even your programmatic interface will also be denied authentication to view the content of this blog. So for us to be able to view the content of this blog, you have to enable a setting. I think it should be under here, under the configuration. Exactly, it's under the configuration. So you can see that there's something here called allow blob anonymous access. So once you want to allow blob anonymous access, then I can change this to what? Enabled. So if I change this to enabled, this means that your blobs can become what? Anonymously readable. So what this does, because when you come here and you just paste a link to a particular file, it means that what you're trying to show is that anybody can access the file. So there's no header, there's no authentication header, there's no key, there's no information with that request that allows Azure to understand who wants to access this file. So when Azure does not have those information, Azure automatically denies access. But when you update, when you allow this feature here, you are telling Azure that even when you don't have idea about whoever wants to access this file, you still allow them to view the file. So if I save this now, if I save this and I come here and I try to do the same thing, we'll still get an error because we are not yet done. You can see that we are still getting an error because we're not yet done. So this is the first step. The next thing you now have to do now is to now go back to your container. Okay, so let's go back to our overview. Then now we now have to go back to our containers and see, okay, activity log, it should be under the storage browser. Yes, we now have to come back to our container. So blob containers, and this is our container. We have to now change the settings of this container itself, because every blob is under a container. So if your container is still private but your blob, you are making your blob public, as long as people cannot access your container first, there's no way for them to access your blob. But before you can change your container level to from private to public, you first have to make that settings that your blob should be anonymously readable. So when you do that, now you can see this, that okay, we now want container anonymous access. So all container and blob data can be read by anonymous request, blah blah blah. And this is just a warning that ideally you shouldn't be doing this because you want your data to be secured and safe. So if I click on OK now, and it changes the level of access for this particular container. So you can, as you can see here, saying that our level of access has been changed. When I come back here now and refresh this page, you can see that we can now see the image that I uploaded on that particular container. So that is one of the access of one of the features of storage account. So and storage accounts, you are not limited in size. So if we come here now and check that default or maximum storage size for Azure storage, you will see that what you will see is 500 terabyte per account, and that is even, it's very unheard of that you can have 500 terabyte for to use for storage, but that is just like the maximum. And basically what you actually need to be confirmed that what you need to be concerned with actually is the blob. So your blobs provide you with just what 4,000 MIB. So if you remember correctly, when I told you that we have a container, then each container will have multiple blobs. So each of those blobs, a blob in one container, a single blob cannot have more than 4,000 MIB. So I think that's 4,000, that should be like 4 gigs. So a single block cannot contain more than 4 gigabyte of data. So you can have a container that will have multiple, you can have 50,000, you can see, you can have 50,000 blobs, but each blob maxes out at 4 gig. And your storage container is automatically able to add more containers with more blobs, and you won't have an issue with your file size limit. So that's the Azure storage container. And if you want to see, sorry, so that's storage browser. So these are our containers here. So these are containers, file shares, folder one. So you can create as much containers as you want, and you can create as much blobs as you want inside the container. So that's the first um Azure services that we are going to be talking about. And then the next one that we're going to be talking about is Microsoft Entra ID. So Microsoft Entra ID, it used to be called Azure Active Directory. So when you want to manage users, in the sense that when you want, because in an organization, we practice, for DevOps methodology, we practice something known as um just one time token and privilege manage access, in the sense that you only have access to what you are meant to have access to. So if you're in an organization and an organization wants to invite you as a developer to probably create storage accounts for them, they would not want you to have access to other things like virtual network or container services for you to use those particular services. So Microsoft Active Directory and Entra ID is the tool that we can use to restrict users to the particular services that we want them to have access to. So you can see this is an overview. You have your default name, you have your users. So the major thing that we use here uh, on a basic level is the users. So when you come to the users aspect, you see all the users that you have given access to your Microsoft Azure account. So the system administrator is automatically created, and then this is also automatically created. So one administrator is created using your name, and then a system administrator. So these two are the users that are created automatically, and they have full admin access. Full admin access means they can perform any action with admin privileges using Azure, with either the CLI, the Cloud Console, or whatever. As long as it's any of these two accounts, you can use them. So you can now begin to create users. And what we do mostly for our stage E is that we tell you guys to create a new user, for just as I did for this particular. So this, now you can see that this email is different from this other email. So this is the email associated with my account, but this is another email. So this email, I created a user for this email, and then after creating a user, you can specify what. So let me go to this user, because you need to have a valid email to create a user. Since I cannot pick one off the top of my head, I'll just show you with this user that I've created previously. So once the account starts, the person has to accept the invitation first. So once the person has accepted the invitation, then you can now begin to assign the person roles. So you can see the object ID. So what we're concerned about is the roles. So if you come for every user and you click on the assigned roles for the user, so we have I assigned just one role called application administrator, and that was because I needed the account to be able to create and manage all aspects of app registrations and enterprise apps. So if this account logs in to its Microsoft Azure platform and try to do any other thing than this particular role that I've assigned to it, it can it will not work. It will not have that kind of access. So apart from just creating the user from here, you can even create a user without adding rules. So when you now want to give users access to a particular thing, the most common methodology is to go to your resource group. So if I come here to my resource group and I go to our resource group that we created today, so you can give users access. So if you come here now to this resource group overview, and we come here, okay, to check the access control under IAM, you will see the different users that have access to this particular resource group. So if I come here to the role assignments, you can see that there is no user. Okay, it was loading. There are two users. So you can see that there are just two users that have been assigned to this particular stuff. So if I come here now and do um so if I come here, you can see the owner is this with my name, and I'm also the user administrator. So let's say after you created this resource group, you only want that particular developer to create tools in this resource group and should not have access to any other resource group. All you have to come here is to click on roles. When you click on roles, then you can add a new role. So I want to add the role assignment, I want to add a core administrator, blah blah blah. So once I click on add role assignment, so there are two types of roles. So these are roles that um they all have a lot of different details. So you can there are quite much. If you click on the details, as well give you an expanded box that you can use to read all of the details that a particular role gives to someone. But um based on the service that the person wants to provide, you can use privileged administrator roles. So these administrator roles, they are not much, and these are the only options that you have for privileged administrator roles. So you can say, okay, this person is the current owner. So this owner role, it grants full access to manage all resources, including the ability to assign roles. So when you give somebody a role owner, that person can also invite other users to that particular resource group and also assign roles to them. When you give someone a contributor, it allows you to access all of the resources, but it does not allow you to be able to invite people and assign roles. That's the second level. Then the third level is access review operator. So you can review the system. That means you can see all of the resources that have been created in this resource group, but you don't have any right to edit or make changes to any of them. And you can also discover and revoke accesses by the needed. So this is an access review. And then role-based access administrator. So this also has ability to Azure roles, but it does not allow you to manage access using the cloud resources and stuff. So is either you assign someone as an owner or a contributor. So if I select owner, for example, as the role I want to select, and I click on next, so you can now assign this access to a particular user, a group or a service principal. Group or service principals at other types of identities on Azure. Hopefully when we have time for stage G, we can talk about a bit about this. So you select a member that you want this member to become this role. So you can see it will list all of the users that you have on your platform, and then I can select add the guest as this selected member, and I click on select. So once I do this and I click on next, so you see that I can now tell the person, okay, what can this person do? Even though we are saying we want to give him a privileged owner role, still, do we want to hinder him in some aspect? Okay, do we want the only person to be able to assign other roles apart from privileged admin roles, and then all of this stuff? Then click on next. So a condition is required. So what is the condition? Okay, we have selected the condition. Exactly. So the condition is the person can assign all roles. So let me go to next, and then with this we can review and assign. So once we review and assign this role, so this particular user that you have invited will be added to this part your resource group, and then that user, we don't have enough time. I'll try to log into my other account as well. Will be able to view this resource group and also create um any we'll also be able to create any accounts or any resource in that particular resource group only. So the third feature that we'll be talking about, which will be the last feature for today, is the container instances feature. So if you come here to the container instances feature, so this is closely related this is closely related to the Docker containers that we created the last time. So container instances are basically Docker containers. You can just abstract it in that method. So container instances are ways where you can create containers, but Azure gives you the opportunity to use more than Docker containers. So there are also Azure containers that you can get from Azure Container Registry and the likes. But basically, The container instances is a container that is created from a previously saved container image. So if I want to create a container instances, I will not create this because I once worked on a project. I'll just, so for you to understand, one of the issues that when you move into cloud, it's a very very popular conception, and I'll just share the story with you because everyone has it, and probably to also help you to not fall victim. So with Azure or any even cloud provider, it is always advised that you're always managing your bills. So let me just show you that. Probably let me skip this for now and go to cost estimator. Exactly, billing subscriptions and the cost estimator. So every cloud platform will always have a tool like this where you can see your cost management and your billing subscriptions. So it is always advised that you always check your billing subscription at least once a day, so you can have an idea of whatever bill you are attracting, or whatever your cost analysis, or whatever cost you are incurring on your account, because you might feel you are probably um you might feel that you are probably deleted a resource or something, but probably due to network connectivity or low bandwidth, your resource does not get deleted. And then these resources keep incurring costs. Most Azure resources, they incur costs by the minute, some by the hour, some by the amount of requests that is done. There are a lot of different ways that they incur costs. But the Azure resource will keep incurring costs as long as it is created. So if you are someone, previously I used to be the kind of person where I don't check my bills, because I try as much as possible to ensure that, because this was during my learning phase. So I try as much as possible to ensure that I only use resources that are free. So on a particular day, I was working on a project. So this is the cost analysis. You can see. So with this, you can see your projected amounts that you pay by April 30. So all of the different things that you have to do. You can see the resources that are costing more. You can see that, okay, for my is the storage, the bandwidth, the app service. These are the locations, or these are the resource group. So with this, always try and visit your billing management at least once every day, so you ensure that you are not incurring unnecessary costs or unexpected costs. So just like we have container instances that I should showcase to us, we also have something called container apps. I'm just trying to build up this story. So we have this called container apps. So container apps and container instances are the same thing. The only difference is that one is bearing container apps, and the other one is bearing container instances. So container apps is a free service. If you come to Azure, if you come here, let me show you free Azure services, and you click on this. So if you click, they have a page where they list all of the free services that you have on Azure. So I was trying to work on a particular project on that particular day, and when I came here to check all of the free services here, click on see all free services. You see, when you get to see, you see container apps. It should be somewhere around there. Exactly. So you can see there's container apps. It's a free service and it is always free. So with that knowledge that it was a free service, I came to Azure looking for container apps, but apparently I had chosen container instances. So on that day, I created four different container instances because I was trying to work on a microservice project, and we had four different containers that were interacting with each other, holding different services. So I created four different container instances. And if you try and create a container instance is not free. So if we come here to check pricing pricing for container instances, container instances on Azure, so we can see the price exactly. So the container instances pricing, you can see that our pricing is pay as you go. Okay. And then for the Linux OX, they have like I'm trying to show. Okay, they charge per hour. I'm trying to show the particular, exactly, the container instances pricing. So this is the pricing table. So for the pricing table, okay, per vCPU, and all of this I think you pay per hour. So all of this is done per hour, but I don't exactly. So this is the V100 container group. So I'm just trying to show to build. So just to continue with the issue. So I came to use container services here instead of container instances. So if I come here to change the size, you see that there's a pricing, GPU type, number of cores. So I did all of this and select and created the container instance, thinking I created the container. And basically my container instance that I created, thinking I had created a container app that was free, was incurring a cost of 11 USD per day. And I did not realize until it was after 20 days or thereabouts. So I had incurred a cost of around 150 USD for an app that I thought was free. Meanwhile, I was using a paid service. So it is always advised that you use your cost management and billing plan to try and ensure that you don't incur unwanted and unnecessary costs. Because I had thought I was using the container app service. Meanwhile, what I was using was the container instance, and the container instance is not a free service, because for you to have a container instance service, you also need to you have a container registry. So if I come here to click on a create containers instance, the resource group, I'll select the LCS again. So the container name is sample, and then the region is also, let's leave this as it is. So you need to select your image source. So I will show in the next live coding session, or in our free live coding session for that stages, where it might not be for container instance, it will actually be for web app, Azure web app service, where you can link up your Docker container that you created and push it to a platform called Docker Hub. And then from Docker Hub, you can use that registry. So you can see, so you have something called the Docker Hub registry. So Docker Hub is like a Docker registry. Azure also has its own container registry that you can create. But the container registry is also like $3 per hour or thereabouts for the whole day. So in on using these container instance services, thinking that the container app was free, I had incurred that particular cost unknowingly. So it took a lot of back and forth with the human resources and customer service to try and find a way to navigate that debacle. So I would, as I was trying to say, just advice is that whenever you're creating using cloud services, because these services are quite paid, you always have to ensure that you're using the correct service and try and monitor your cost as effectively as possible so that you don't incur unwanted costs. And this is a popular story amongst popular cloud developers. So to that, we'll round up our live coding session. I can take like two questions or thereabout before we end it, and then this is live coding session for stage B. So the next live coding session will be for stage C, where we'll be going deeper into where we'll be going deeper into CI/CD and using Git actions and a lot of other development tools that we have for the platform. So, is there any question from anyone before we
Yeah,
end the
there's
session?
question, Mr. Day.
Okay, yeah, sure. I can.
Yeah,
What's the
thank you very
question?
much for this wonderful lectures. The other live coding session that was on Friday, you made mention of some of us who have who have a gadget that doesn't have good infrastructure, like good
Okay.
RAM and hard disk. How do I leverage on cloud so that I will be able to work on the project with
On
having
this,
sources?
yeah, that's a nice question. So, leveraging on the cloud for DevOps is if you, I hope you can still see my screen.
Sure.
Yeah, so if you can see my screen, this year is called the Cloud Shell. So Azure provides something called the Cloud Shell, and what Cloud Shell does is that your cloud shell gives you a console on the cloud. So basically what they do is you need to have a storage mounted actually and a subscription. So but if you have a working subscription and you have a storage account and you create, so I'll just create this storage and probably delete it later because I want secured costs. So this storage you are creating for your cloud shell, it also includes costs. So immediately you're done with your cloud shell, try and ensure to remember to always delete your cloud shell. So as I was saying, with this cloud shell, it gives you all of the functionalities that you will perform on a command line of a regular system, and you have access to three different terminals. The first is you can use bash is for Linux. So apart from bash, you also have PowerShell. So if you want to go with a more Linux driven development with your cloud shell, you have bash to use. If you want to go with a more Windows driven development, so how can you leverage on this? So most of the times when we want to perform actions on the cloud, um we need the we need the command line to basically. So when you have a bash, a shell like this, you can abstract this and think you are working with a shell of your computer. And with this, you can perform any feature that you will normally perform on a PC. And since you are working on the cloud, it doesn't have all of the lagging issue because they don't really have much requirement as to RAM and the storage size. The only requirement they have is the storage, and that is what the storage account you just created is going to be used for. So if you click on this here, um if you click on this here, it will show you, like you can see, this is where you can begin to edit. It has an editor, so you can I can bring this up here to fill the screen, and then probably bring my shell. So this is an editor. With this editor, you can write Python codes. You can write Python codes. Apart from Python code, you can also write Terraform code. You can almost anything, as long as you can even write .txt files, you can write YAML files, as long as it's a supported programming language, and you can do any installation here. So let's say I want to let me see if the Python command is available. So you can see Python is available here. So I can write a Python file here in this editor, save it, and then run it on this PC. So apart from just Python, as long as it's a programming language that will work with a normal command line tool on any system, you can use your cloud shell to do this. I remember the first time I realized it, I used it to create a Docker itself. With this, you can the Docker, all of the Docker process I was showing, and the one we'll still use using command line. You can write your Docker
So,
file here.
so this can be used to create Docker desktop.
Yes, not Docker desktop. Actually, you can use it for the Docker CLI, the Docker command
Okay,
line tool. So we know
okay, okay,
Docker desktop is just a GUI version, but this
okay,
is
okay,
only
okay.
the command line version. So you have the if I go out of Python now and type Docker, so we have all of the Docker features. So you can see this is Docker. So you can do Docker build dots, Docker run. You can run a container. You can do most of the other things that you can do on your system with this shell. So you just need to probably do a little bit of research for the command line if you are using how the command line tool works and how you can use it effectively. But this is one of the very, very good features that was provided by the cloud, where you can use this to work on codes. So these are you can leverage on this to work on most of the other features that you want to perform that your PC might not be probably be able to handle.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. So any other question?
Yes, please. Thank you so much for the wonderful session. Please, my question is around the subscription. Now, let's say I I activated my account with, say, maybe domiciliary debit card. Now, I heard you saying that they will give us like 3,000 worth of credit, $3,000 worth of credit. I'm not sure if that is correct. And that aside, when they are if I now use maybe a service that is not free, is that they will deduct from that amount that has been kind of given to me to use, or they will deduct the amount from my account directly? That's my bank
They
account
will,
now.
they will,
Just
they will
wanting
deduct
clarification on that.
they will deduct it from the credits that they give you. So the only time that it begin to charge you is when the free credit that they give you is expired. So for example, you can see on my subscription, I've been doing a lot of stuff and I'm using the free credits that is provided for students that have a student email. So if you have a student email at any level, undergraduates, postgraduates, as long as you have a student email that is verified with any institution, so before they charge your account, your credit will be exhausted. And when your credit is exhausted, they notify you that your credit is exhausted. So at that point, you can even cancel your subscription and take away your card from that account so you don't incur any cost unexpectedly. So immediately your credit gets exhausted, you can deactivate your subscription to probably try and ensure that okay, you only use free services, or ensure that any service that is paid will not get activated because there's no subscription there anymore. So the major thing you need is just that subscription for you to get the free credits as an initial user.
Oh, okay, okay. Thank you so much.
All right, guys. Thanks for the session. We have to leave now because of the other session that is about to happen. So you guys have a wonderful rest of the day, and see you next time. Bye.